Once upon a time, in a quiet little town surrounded by fields and dusty streets, there lived a boy named Armin. Armin was not born lazy. He laughed like the other children, dreamed like them, and wanted to do great things one day. But slowly, laziness wrapped around him like chains. He would sleep late, skip school assignments, spend hours lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling, telling himself, "I'll do it tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. His parents worried. His teachers shook their heads. His friends moved ahead, step by step, while Armin stayed stuck. He wasn't stupid. In fact, he was intelligent. But he had convinced himself that effort was too heavy, too painful. And so, the boy who could have been a bright star began fading into the shadows. One evening, as the sun sank behind the town's old clock tower, Armin's father walked into his room. The boy was lying there, scrolling his phone, half dreaming. His father sat beside him quietly for a long moment. Then he said just one line, "Son, if you don't fight your laziness today, life will punish you tomorrow." Armin laughed it off, but those words burned inside him. Still, the chains of comfort pulled harder. Why stand up? Why work hard? The bed was softer. The world outside was cruel. Days passed, weeks passed, and then came the moment that would change everything. At school, the annual sports competition was announced. It was a big event. Families gathered. Teachers cheered. The best athletes of the town competed. Armin's classmates signed up eagerly, but he shrugged. Not for me. Yet destiny has a strange way of forcing us to face ourselves. The teacher, tired of Armin's excuses, looked him straight in the eye and said, "Armin, this time you will run. No excuses." The whole class laughed. Lazy Armin? He can't even walk properly, let alone run. The words cut deep. For the first time in a long time, Armin felt something stir inside: shame, humiliation, anger. That night, lying awake in the dark, he whispered to himself, "Am I really this useless? Am I really just the lazy boy everyone mocks?" This was the seed of doubt, the moment when the mirror of truth cracked before him. But here's the thing about life sometimes. It's not the loud victories that change us. It's the quiet humiliation, the sting of laughter, the realization that we are wasting the gift we've been given. And in that silence, with his fists clenched, Armin made a decision, a small, trembling decision. No, I will prove them wrong. The struggle had just begun. The next morning, Armin woke up earlier than usual. The sun was barely up, the streets still empty, the world still quiet. For the first time in years, he tied his shoelaces and stepped outside. He wasn't running for the medal. He wasn't running for the cheers. He was running to kill the enemy that had lived inside him all along his laziness. But it wasn't easy. The first few steps felt like fire in his lungs. His legs screamed. His body begged him to stop, and the voice inside whispered, "See? This is why you never try. Go back, lie down, sleep." But Armin kept moving, slow, stumbling, breathless. Every step felt like war. People passing by looked at him strangely. Some even laughed. But for the first time, he didn't care. Because the real battle wasn't against them. It was against himself. Day after day, he repeated the routine. Wake up, run, fail, run again. Some mornings he collapsed on the sidewalk, gasping for air. Some mornings he almost quit. But each time he remembered the laughter of his classmates, the disappointment in his father's eyes, the question he had asked himself in the dark. Am I really this useless? And that memory lit a fire that kept him going. Weeks passed. The boy who once dragged his feet now moved with determination. The lazy eyes that once looked for excuses now burned with focus. He wasn't fast. He wasn't the strongest, but he was changing. Slowly, something inside him began to shift. Each morning, when the alarm rang, he didn't groan anymore. He smiled, because now, discipline was becoming his new comfort. The chains of laziness were breaking link by link, step by step. Then came the day of the sports event. The crowd gathered on the dusty school ground. The track was ready. The competitors lined up. And among them, Trembling but determined stood Arman, the same boy who once hid behind excuses, now standing at the starting line. The whispers began. Look at him. Lazy Arman actually showed up. He won't last a minute, but Arman, and as the whistle blew, his heart thundered. His legs surged forward. And in that moment, it wasn't just a race on the track. It was a race against every lazy day of his past. The turning point had arrived. The whistle pierced the air, and Arman ran. The ground shook beneath his feet, dust rising with every step. The other boys surged ahead fast, powerful, confident. Arman, though, he stumbled at the start. His old enemy whispered, See? You're still the same, slow, weak, worthless. But this time, he didn't listen. He pushed harder. His breath grew heavy. His legs burned like fire. Every part of his body begged him to stop. But inside his mind, another voice roared louder. Not today. Not anymore. This is not about winning medals. This is about proving that I am no longer a prisoner of laziness. Halfway down the track, he was already far behind. The crowd wasn't cheering for him. They were cheering for the leaders. Some even smirked. Told you, he doesn't belong here. But Arman kept running. His chest ached. His vision blurred. Sweat poured down his face. And then, something happened. In the middle of his struggle, he saw his father standing by the fence. Silent. Watching. Not angry. Not disappointed. Just waiting. And suddenly, Arman remembered that night, the quiet room, the heavy words. If you don't fight your laziness today, life will punish you tomorrow. He clenched his fists. His stride grew stronger. One step, then another, then another. He began passing one boy, then another. The crowd noticed. The murmurs began. The laughter turned into silence. By the final stretch, Arman was still not first. But he wasn't last either. He was in the middle, fighting, pushing, refusing to stop. Every second felt like eternity. Every heartbeat thundered like a drum of war. And when he finally crossed the finish line, the boy who was once called lazy, the boy everyone thought would quit, had finished the race. Not as the winner of medals, but as the winner of himself. The crowd didn't roar for him. There were no trophies, no grand applause. But deep inside, Arman felt something far greater than any prize. Freedom. For the first time, he looked in the mirror of his own soul and saw not a lazy boy, not a failure, but a fighter. He bent over, gasping for air, sweat dripping onto the ground, and he smiled through the exhaustion. Because he knew this was just the beginning. That night, Arman lay on his bed again. But it wasn't the same boy who once wasted hours staring at the ceiling. His body was sore, his legs ached, but his heart felt alive. For the first time, he realized a secret that only those who fight laziness discover. The pain of discipline is far lighter than the pain of regret. From that day forward, everything began to change. Arman no longer hit the snooze button. He no longer waited for tomorrow. He lived with urgency, with hunger, with fire. Each morning, he woke before the sun and ran. Not because of the race. That race was over. But because he had found something more valuable, momentum. And momentum, once it grabs you, transforms you. Slowly, his grades improved. His teachers noticed. The boy who once sat at the back of the class, eyes half closed, was now the one asking questions, solving problems, pushing himself. His parents, who once worried about his future, now looked at him with pride. Even his classmates, the same ones who laughed, grew quiet. Some even whispered, "How did he change? How did the laziest among us become unstoppable?" And the answer was simple, because Arman learned the greatest victory in life is not over others. It's over the weaker version of yourself. But here's the truth. His journey was far from perfect. There were still days he wanted to quit. Days when the bed seemed too comfortable, when the excuses came knocking. But every time, he remembered that feeling. Standing at the finish line, breathless but victorious, knowing he had defeated the laziness that chained him for years. That memory was stronger than any excuse. And slowly, the label of lazy boy disappeared. It was replaced with a new one, the boy who proved himself. Because people may doubt you. They may mock you. They may call you useless. But when you decide to rise, when you decide to fight, when you decide to keep showing up no matter how many times you fall, the world has no choice but to respect you. And so, Armin's story became more than just his own. It became a reminder, a message, a lesson for everyone who ever felt too weak, too lazy, too hopeless. That no matter how far you've fallen into comfort, you can always climb out. That no matter how heavy laziness feels, discipline is stronger. That no matter how many people laugh, you can silence them with action. Because in the end, it's not about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. Years later, people would look back at Armin's life and smile. They no longer remembered him as the lazy boy. They remembered him as the man who transformed. He didn't just win races. He didn't just improve his grades. He won something far greater: self-respect. And that respect became the foundation of everything he built after. He once thought laziness was comfort, but he learned it was poison, slowly stealing his future. He once thought hard work was painful, but he discovered it was the only thing that gave him freedom. And this truth carried him into every challenge of life, whether in studies, work, or relationships. Because once you conquer yourself, no mountain is too high, no obstacle too strong, no enemy too powerful. Imagine this for a moment. If Armin, a boy who wasted his days lying in bed, mocked and doubted by everyone, could rise and rebuild himself from nothing, then what excuse do you have? Yes, you who are listening right now. You who keep saying tomorrow. You who keep waiting for the perfect moment. You who let laziness steal your time, your potential, your life. Stop, because tomorrow is a lie. The only real moment is now. Armin's story is not just his story. It's the story of anyone who decides to break the chains of laziness and fight back. It's the story of anyone who refuses to be defined by their past. It's the story of anyone who believes they can become more. And maybe it can be your story too. So the next time your alarm rings and you feel like sleeping in, remember Armin, the boy who proved himself, the boy who killed his laziness, the boy who discovered that discipline is freedom. Get up, run your race, fight your laziness, prove yourself. Because in the end, life doesn't reward the ones who wait. Life rewards the ones who rise.